we had hired an artist who I won't say 36 hours before they were set to take the stage. We got a phone call that they'd had a family emergency and they were not going to be making it to Vegas and they were not going to be performing. And after a solid 5 minute nervous breakdown, I pulled it together and found some folks for a little approval on a little extra budget. And we were able to get chain smokers in like 24 hours. And
Oh,
they ended up being incredible.
all right. Welcome, welcome. Hello, and happy Tuesday, Wednesday, whatever date is that you're listening to this. We have an awesome guest today, Ashley. She is a meetings and events extraordinaire. And we were talking probably like a week or two ago. And I think that this is the perfect way to introduce her because it's a piece of advice that I have for all young people coming out of school or maybe they're early in their career. But Ashley did something really fantastic in her career where she advocated for events to be like a central part of the organization's planning and strategy and to be basically close to power. And so Ashley's going to tell her story today, but my kind of advice to young people is when you're early in your career, you may think that you want to take that job at Google or you may think that you want to take that job at a big company, but often your learning curve is faster and you'll go further in your career if you are I say, fly as close to the sun as possible. You want to be as close to power as possible. And power is in companies is management. And so Ashley has a fantastic story. I love if you could kind of kick us off, give us your background. And I love for you to tell the audience about what you did at Chipotle and how that kind of like shaped your career and where you are today. Because when I first heard the story, I loved it so much. And I was like, everyone should know about this. It's the perfect example.
Yeah, sure. Well, thanks for having me. I'm happy to be here. I came up with I think that intro is amazing and actually takes me even earlier than Chipotle when I think about the way that I did my career. I initially started at a startup with maybe 6 employees. And you want to talk about close to the sun, we were all the sun. And so I think that there's, to your point, so much to learn. And, while a lot of those brands that have the big names and a lot of the attention seem really exciting initially. I think there's a huge opportunity when it comes to where can you have the most influence as quickly as possible in your career. So great thinking there in the intro. My time at Chipotle, I started in the marketing department and oversaw a lot of areas of the business. And I also contribute that, being sort of a Jill of all trades, into how I was able to leverage that into, where I really wanted to be, which was in the event space. So, again, you may be doing roles that you didn't anticipate, but they get you closer to interesting conversations that help you propel in your career. And over time, starting in marketing, really doing a lot in marketing operations. One of those things being the events, but it was sort of very peripheral. We were doing, an event every year. It was sort of not wildly significant for the organization at the time. And as we, changed as an organization and had a significant adjustment to our C-suite and a move to California and all of those sorts of things in 2017, 2018, it became obvious that there was a more of an appetite at the C-suite level for programming that really drove the needle with our operators, I think to having executives that really see the value in what experiential can do, what bringing together all of their people can do, that you can really hold hands with a rewarding experience and an experience that provides a lot of training. And so that's what we really tried to do at Chipotle. And over time, as that portfolio grew in a significant way, I moved into a head of events role and left some of my marketing responsibilities behind and really developed a nice portfolio with a really nice cadence of meetings that really, you know, worked well with what the organization needed at the time. So sat down with C-suite and really developed, you know, when we see lulls in engagement, when we see lulls in training, how can we get as proactive and strategic as possible so that everything isn't sort of happening at the last minute.
Yeah, no, it's really cool and fantastic. And it's a conversation that is often not talked about enough in our space, that sometimes executives have like the events part of the business as just this like thing that happens, right? It's marked down in the P&L, it's part of the budget. They understand it, but they don't really think that it's central. And I think that your career has an interesting kind of twist to it, because you've followed one executive around, and I know that when people who are seen as like hired executives and they're seen as like the fix it guy, often events play a very specific role in like shaping buy-in from the company, right? Like when a company gets a new CEO and they go through management change, events can often be that like aha moment where we rally the troops, we get everyone singing from the same sheet of music. So I was wondered if you had any kind of insight for the audience about just how to frame the importance of events for a C-suite. Like, what is that conversation like? What's the kind of like internal behind the scenes talk when you're pitching a C-suite, and like the importance of having a new CEO publicly at an event?
Sure. Well, I think there's a few things there. I think first, it's so important to remember that executives are focused on impact and cost. You know, amongst many other things, of course. But if you really distill it down, how can this how can this event have, or whatever it is you're working on, have a significant impact? How are you going to show that it has a significant impact? And how can you stay beholden to a budget that you're given? And so I think the onus is a lot on the event professionals to be able to really navigate what that ROI is. And are you being really strategic? Do you have the right partners in place that are going to help you tell that story over time? I think when you're initially going in and it's maybe a first event or a first event for this executive team, I think showing hopefully what you've been able to do either in your career or what the organization has traditionally done is always helpful. I am a big proponent also of good, better, and best. So you know, not everyone is 100% down to spend millions and millions of dollars hot out of the gate. And so
Sure.
really being able to understand, okay, how I could accomplish a good event. Here's how I could accomplish a better event. And here's how I could accomplish a best event, and what those dollar amounts, you know, equal, and also what that experience then is for the operators. You know, is it white glove service for travel? Because you know, you may have an under traveled group that you want to hold hands with so that it's not a stressful experience. It may be a deep focus on hospitality because, you know, at Chipotle, that was what we were very focused on, creating a hospitable environment, excellent food, and an excellent experience in restaurant. And, you know, that's all similar to Starbucks. You know, that's sort of the perspective. And so, how do we create a really hospitable environment on the event level from the beginning? You know, of course, events tend to build on themselves. So you want to do the best job that you can every time, but know that you're going to need to probably level up. And so again, that onus is on the event professionals. How are we getting 5, 10, 15% better every year? You inevitably are going to come up against the challenges that we all do in live events, and that happens. How are you managing that? How are you again positioning yourself to executives as the sort of the manager of those emergency situations that may happen, the very calm face to an event both in the planning and on scene. um, so I would say all of that is paramount to being able to really drive the needle and continuing to build on an events portfolio with with executive buy-in anyway.
Interesting. You made a mention of budget. I know that budgets are tight, and we live in uncertain times, especially with the economy and AI. And there's a lot of, I would just call like fear and uncertainty in general, which I feel like in those environments really does budgets start to tighten, right? Whenever there's like fear and there's like uncertainty, budgets start to shrink. In your estimation, what are some places that you see that people try to shrink budgets in like an area of a program where maybe they shouldn't because it like has an outsized impact on quality?
Oh my gosh. Can I say the entirety of it? I think
Yeah, sure.
I think most important is that initial buy-in and that initial agreement on the budget is so imperative years down the ultimately if you're operating on a strategic cadence and you're likely getting budget okays and budget approvals, 12 to 24 months in advance. I think most important is being sure that that is incredibly honest. You aren't overinflating. People get smart about that, right? So execs are like, I just really don't think that's necessary. You have to become a person at a leadership level and at a strategy level that understands that every dollar you're asking for has impact on the organization. So are you already being really mindful? I think when you're being mindful with an understanding again of that good, better, best, do you want, I always put it in car terms, but do you want this event to feel like a Honda or do you want it to feel like a BMW or
So
something in
smart.
between? Is there something that we can find? And really aligning on that with the execs in advance in my career has always allowed for generally not a lot of robbing Peter to pay Paul down the road. So really level setting from early on is so important. As far as what can impact the event in an outsized way, I would say food and beverage. People feel that they don't want to get that snack skipped. And are there smart ways to not have a on consumption $5 can of soda? Of course. And so trying to be really thoughtful there can be helpful. But largely that, I think there are ways to you know navigate talent in an interesting way. You might be looking in different areas than you were. If you don't have $1 million entertainer budgets to start a program, is there a way to create a bit of like a showcase where you maybe reaching out to three artists who are up and coming. And so
Yeah.
if artist one doesn't appeal, artist two might, because you're showing a different array of genres and things like that. So you don't always have to hire Bruno Mars. You can navigate some of that a little bit differently. Also with speakers, that's a great way. Keynote speakers, there are so many incredible keynotes that are not um, you know Mel Robbins. And while you'd love to have those really exciting folks, it's about the impact more so than it is about the name. So getting creative in those ways is always significant. Really, the number one thing is, are you really aligned on that those
Mm.
property costs, the convention space, not even the convention space, but hotel space, if you're paying for that, which most internal programs are, um, that should be aligned very early on because that's going to dictate a massive amount of your budget.
Yeah, we've seen this really interesting trend at Allfly where we've had a weird number of programs that were going to Europe. And we're close to some of the planners that are putting them on. And, just the airfare is going to be triple, right? Like just, if our average domestic fare is $500, our average one to Europe is 1,500. It just is what it is. But
Sure.
it was very interesting where we had a few programs say, you know what? The hotel situation in the United States for some places has gotten so out of control with like fees and just what it costs that it was cheaper to spend the more money on the airline ticket and have that variable unknown cost, because in certain locations the hotel has just like ran away with costs. It was very like an interesting trend, and this is today. This isn't like at another time. Even with everything that's going on in the world and geopolitics aside, this trend was still happening because of cost at the property. And like me as a conference attendee, I love a bougie hotel. Like
Yeah. Who
I want
doesn't?
the bougie. Yeah, I want the bougie. Like, for me, I'm like the meal. I'm like, okay, like, but I'm like, I want a nice accommodation. So that's like where I fall. What's interesting about the entertainment budget? I don't know if you probably can't say, and you have too much class. I unfortunately don't. But I saw a quote. I saw a quote with what John Legend charges for a 45-minute acoustic piano set. And I was like, whoa, you got to
Yep.
sell a lot of units to cover for
There's quite a
Johnny
few
Boy.
commas. Quite a
There's,
few
I
commas.
was like, wait a second, for 45 minutes worth of work? And I was like,
Yeah.
yeah, that's like a team of 12 salary for 45 minutes. It's like, ooh, that was
Yeah, for
rough.
sure. Some of those dollar amounts come back, and it is a little shocking, to be sure. But there are still incredible artists that you can get for
Totally.
a couple $100,000. So not all hope is lost,
Yeah.
if you don't have a 3 point in your budget.
Do you have a
In
favorite
your
place
career,
that oh, go ahead, Jason.
no, I was just going to ask. So, in your career, is there a moment that has stood out that's like, that really nailed it? That was, one of the more successful surprises.
You know, it was a surprise to me and the audience both. This is one of my favorite stories. So in 2024, my last large program with Chipotle, it was for about 4,500 of our GMs. It was in Las Vegas. It was our final night, and I am a big proponent of surprise and delight. I don't like anyone to know anything that's going on. Honestly, even just below C-suite, I'd prefer no one know except me and maybe five others. Um, we had hired an artist who I won't say, um, and we were very excited. They were going to do our closing party after what we called the Adobo Awards, which is an award ceremony that I started in 2014, I believe. So we had an after party. We'd hired this artist, and about 48 hours, 36 hours before they were set to take the stage, we got a phone call that they'd had a family emergency and they were not going to be making it to Vegas and they were not going to be performing. And after a solid 5 minute nervous breakdown, I pulled it together and found some folks for a little approval on a little extra budget. And we were able to get chain smokers in like 24 hours. And
Oh,
they ended up being incredible. They were fantastic to work with. They were thrilled to be there. They were not like, we're playing second fiddle. It did. And to frankly, every person except, the 10 of us who knew who the performer was initially, um, it was an absolutely epic night, and so sometimes you got to roll with the oopsie daisies, and they turn out better than you
Yeah.
could have imagined.
that's
Snatched
so
from the
cool.
jaws of defeat. Yeah, that's great.
I mean,
Exactly.
when you introed the story, I thought you were going to say Taylor Swift. I was like, wait, does Ashley know Taylor Swift like personally? You just got Taylor to come out there.
As a surprise, yes, Taylor and I are incredibly
Right.
close.
No, I was watching this video it was for like a few months ago. But there was an event in a small bar in, I think it was Nashville. They were like putting on something as like the Tight Ends Awards or charity, and I think it was Kane Brown, and Kane Brown just intro Taylor Swift, and Taylor Swift's surprise came out and just like played some songs. Those are the coolest videos, first of all.
Right.
And why every artist doesn't do that. On the side note, Like, why every artist just isn't showing up at like little kids' birthday parties and like weird places? You earn
Wedding
so much
receptions.
wedding receptions. I mean, because Taylor Swift did that for like a little bit of time where she would just show up at like fan stuff. And I feel like she got so much good grace and so much like the publicity was worth its weight in gold of like the extra cost that she's incurred. I don't know, on a weird side note, I don't know why more people don't do the surprise performance.
Yeah, I think especially at like maybe a little lower level than she is, because at this point it's like such a security challenge and
Yeah.
like logistical challenge and all that business. But yeah, man, if Taylor wants to come surprise any of my event programs, just she can text me. Just
Yeah.
text me, girl.
Just shoot me a little text message. Do you have a favorite? Do you have a favorite place that you've put on like an event? If you had to recommend like a small program of say 100, maybe of a destination that people overlook, is there a place that comes to mind?
Oh my gosh, a favorite small place. I mean, when you were saying initially, I'm like, I am a Vegas stan. I really do for the longest time I fought against Vegas and now I love it so much. But
Really, it's
that's
controversial
always
too. What you're saying, like what you're saying, is wild.
it is.
Well, okay, so I did. And I'll let you get back to it. I'm sorry for cutting you off, but my most famous LinkedIn post of my entire life is I ordered room service guy. I had like back to back meetings, and I forgot what property that I was at, but I got a coffee and an avocado toast, and the bill came out to $53. I posted this. I'm like,
That
"Welcome to
tracks.
Las Vegas," right? That's the most famous I've ever felt in my life. I had people calling me from everywhere, being like, "Vegas deserves to burn." There was so much Vegas hate, but you know what? Every year, people keep coming back and keep coming back. And I am a Vegas fan like you, so I'm in your camp. But I know that there's like a mounting army of planners and travel professionals that are coming for you and I for Vegas.
Well, listen, come for me because I will always be a Vegas proponent. I think it's a fantastic city. I think the transportation is amazing. Look, Kenny, if you get out of bed and walked out just downstairs, that bill is cut in half. So I would say
Totally.
blame yourself for that avocado toast debacle.
No,
Um,
I'm 100% to blame. Like, trust me, I know. I had to text Eric, our CEO, and I was like, "Bro, there's gonna be like a $60 charge for some toast." I was like, "Don't sweat it."
right, right. Yeah, hit me with a reimbursement. I'll pay for it. Yeah, so love a Vegas. And frankly, I actually love Vegas for any size. But we'll leave Vegas in the dust for a minute. I would say um I love a city that has a little bit of personality on its own. So where you're getting a little flavor, I think um Austin is a good one. There's a few interesting properties there. I also, if we're talking Mexico or like international from like an incentive perspective, you can't really beat Four Seasons Punta Mita is a win every time. The hospitality is so next level, and I love that part of Mexico. I prefer that generally to like a Cancun Tulum moment, which I know is where a lot of people like to do a lot of the larger programs. But Punta Mita is just incredibly special. Um, so yeah, I would say those come to mind initially.
Yeah, we've been sending a weird number. There's something happening in, is it Malaga, Spain? Jason or Anna? Anna would
Oh,
actually, she would know because she sees the trips come through. We've sent a weird, I've never known what Malaga, Spain is, or if I'm even pronouncing it right. So we may need to cut this, but we've sent a lot of groups to, I think, Malaga, Spain, because there's a weird airport code. I was like, what is this? But
mm,
there's something going on there where they're like doing very good in like the incentive and team offsite world. So kudos to whoever is part of that, because a weird amount of groups we've sent to Malaga, Spain. I was like texting one of the people on our tech team of like, do we have this airport like in our drop down? I had to make sure, but yeah, we sure
it's
did.
like a
So
mini private airport.
yeah,
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 we I
tiny.
did I did some programming in Spain and will say we were in Madrid, so a little bit different situation, but we had a wonderful experience. And again, plays into the flavor of where you are, which I love that you can kind of have a little fun. We, did the Spanish dancers as an intermission between courses of the dinner meal and all those sorts of things. So had some fun there.
That's awesome. Well, I want to be respectful of your time. I feel like you're a wealth of information. I could talk to you for the entire day. Do you have any advice for like people who are young in their career in the meetings and events world?
Yes. And you want to talk about things I could talk about all day. I would say number one, relationships in this industry are everything. Your reputation is everything. The way I sort of trained my team was you should leave, we send out surveys or the hotels or venues send out surveys asking us how things went. I said, you should behave as though we send out a survey asking how their interaction was to work with us. And if it's not 5 stars across the board, we've done something egregiously wrong. Because these
Mm,
folks are here providing a service to us. We are in partner with them. And so really behaving in that way has made a massive impact for me in my career. I have partnerships and relationships with folks I haven't done work with in a very long time who I know I could go to and would drop everything to work with me again. And I've seen it go the other way where folks treat people incorrectly in this industry and that follows you. So I would say discernment when it comes to partnership and really truly finding strategic partners that you can build impactful programming with over time because the other thing I say is your the company at the bottom of your email may change, but your name doesn't. And so
mm.
being very mindful of that and operating with kindness goes a long way.
We're
I would
putting that on
also
a bumper
say,
sticker.
yeah,
Yeah.
perfect. Send me a copy. I would also say don't be above any task. And remember, even as you advance in your career, be a coach and still be a player. I think that's a major piece. I think while you need to advance and begin thinking more mindfully about strategy and all of those sorts of things as you get further along in your career, you also need to be the person that empties the trash if it's creating a negative experience for your program. So keep your ear to the ground, keep your eyes open, do your best to develop relationships with people that could be mentors for you, both in and outside of the event space. I have partnered a lot in my career with people in areas of the organization that have really no impact on events themselves, but have had major impact on the way I think about the way I put a program together.
Mm.
So super important. And probably my third most important is remember to take care of yourself. This industry burns
Mm.
you out. And so being very kind to yourself, being uh, thoughtful about, rest and nutrition and all of those sorts of things when we're on the road so often and on programs for sometimes, 12, 13, 14, 20 days in a hotel room. There are ways to sort of abate some of that burnout and still have a fun time.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, I thank you so much for coming on the show. If people want to follow you, get in touch, is there a way that they should do that?
Yeah, I mean, I'm pretty active on LinkedIn, so feel
Perfect.
free to follow me and find me there. That's probably the easiest way. And yeah, if there's anything I can ever do for anyone event wise, I'm happy to help and happy to bounce ideas off of and all those sorts of things. I think this industry is so special and I am proud to be a part of it. So happy to help anybody that I can.
Awesome. Well, Ashley, you have been a pleasure. Thank you for coming on the show, and we'll talk soon.
Okay, thank you guys. Have a good one.